Don't trust him. Those were my mother's exact words, whispered into my ear as the music swelled and I stood at the altar in my wedding dress. Before I could ask what she meant, she collapsed onto the marble floor, the sound of her fall echoing louder than the organ. The guests screamed. Chairs scraped back. My veil trembled as I turned, frozen, staring at her motionless body. The priest tried to calm everyone down, but all I could hear was that sentence circling in my head. Don't trust him. The ceremony came to an abrupt halt. Paramedics rushed in minutes later, lifting her carefully onto a stretcher. I followed, numb, while my fiancé, Ethan, stayed behind, insisting he had to handle the guests. That detail alone sat heavy in my chest. Why wouldn't he come with me? At the hospital, the fluorescent lights made everything harsher. I sat in the waiting room, still in my gown, my makeup streaked from tears. My father paced, muttering under his breath, but avoided my eyes. It felt like he knew more than he wanted to admit. Finally, the doctor appeared. My mother was alive but unconscious. They weren't sure what had caused the collapse, stress, a hidden condition, or something else. I asked if I could see her, but they said only one visitor at a time. My father went in first. While waiting, I scrolled through my phone, looking for any message from Ethan. Nothing. Instead, I noticed missed calls from a blocked number that had started hours before the wedding. My heart pounded. I didn't recognize the number, but the timing made me uneasy. When my father came out, his face was pale. She asked for you, he said quietly. I rushed in, but my mother's eyes were barely open. Her hand trembled as she reached for mine. There are papers in the house. Don't let him take them. Her voice cracked. Then she drifted back into sleep. Papers? What papers? My chest tightened. I stood there staring at her fragile body when my phone finally buzzed. Ethan had texted, "Stay at the hospital. I'll handle everything. No explanation, no concern. Just cold instruction." That was the moment I knew something wasn't right. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed by my mother's bedside in the hospital, her hand cold and fragile in mine. Her warning wouldn't leave me alone. There are papers. Don't let him take them. Papers about what? And why would Ethan try to take them? By morning, Ethan finally showed up. He carried a bouquet of flowers and wore the same suit from the wedding, only his tie was gone, his hair slightly messy. He kissed my forehead but avoided looking at my mother. "Guess we're upset," he said flatly. "I told them you'd call once things were stable." "That's all you have to say?" I snapped. "My mother almost died, Ethan," he sighed, placing the flowers on the counter. "It was her heart, stress. You know how she gets. Don't let this ruin us." But it wasn't just her collapse that haunted me. It was her words. Later that afternoon, I drove home still in yesterday's gown, ignoring Ethan's offer to handle things for me. The house felt different. Too quiet. I remembered the tone in my mother's voice when she said, "Don't let him take them." I went to my parents' study. Dust covered the old desk, stacks of yellowing folders pushed to the side. In the locked drawer, I found a small box key taped underneath. My mother had shown me once when I was a teenager. Hands shaking, I unlocked it. Inside was a thick envelope marked with my father's handwriting. I slid the papers out. Property deeds, bank statements, and a letter with my name scrawled across the front. My throat tightened. These weren't just family records. They were proof that my mother had quietly secured assets in my name. Real estate, shares in the family company, money Ethan didn't know existed. I nearly dropped the pages when I heard footsteps. Ethan's voice cut through the silence. "What are you doing in here?" He stood at the door, his expression unreadable, his eyes scanning the papers in my hand. My chest burned. "You knew," I whispered. "This is what she was warning me about." He forced a smile, stepping closer. "You don't understand. She's confused. Those belong to your father's estate. I'll take care of it." But I clutched the papers tighter, my body instinctively recoiling. "No, she left them for me. I'm not giving them to you." For a second, something flickered in his eyes. Anger, sharp and dangerous. Then he softened his tone. "Sweetheart, you're tired. You've been through a lot. Let me handle the boring details. That was the first time I felt genuine fear of him. The next morning, I returned to the hospital with the envelope tucked safely in my bag. My mother was still weak, drifting in and out of sleep. My father avoided me, hardly speaking, as if he feared what I might already know. I spent most of the day staring at the papers, rereading them in the cafeteria. They weren't just assets, they were insurance policies, private accounts, even life insurance in my mother's name listing me as the beneficiary. My chest tightened. She had prepared all of this quietly, shielding it from my father and, most importantly, from Ethan. When I stepped outside for air, Ethan was waiting near the parking lot. His smile was tight, forced. "We need to talk," he said, holding my arm a little too firmly. I pulled back. "Not here," he nodded, steering me toward his car. Against my better judgment, I followed. Inside, his tone changed. He didn't pretend anymore. "Your mother is manipulative. She doesn't trust me, and she never has. She set this up to turn you against me." I stared at him. "She collapsed at the wedding, Ethan, and her first words to me were to not trust you." "Why would she say that if there wasn't a reason?" He slammed the steering wheel, his voice rising. "Because she wants control. Can't you see it? She's scared of losing her grip. But you and we can use those papers. Together, we'd never worry about money again." The way he said use sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't about love or marriage anymore. It was about access, about power. "I'm not giving you anything," I said quietly. His jaw tightened. "Think carefully. If you lock me out, you'll regret it." Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was my father. Hesitating, I answered. His voice was shaky. "We need to talk privately." "About Ethan." My stomach dropped. That evening, I met my father in the hospital chapel. The dim light flickered over the wooden pews as he sat hunched forward, avoiding my gaze. Finally, he spoke. "Your mother was right to warn you. Ethan's been pressuring me for months, asking about the business, the accounts, your inheritance." I told him nothing, but I think he planned this marriage for the money. The air left my lungs. I wanted to deny it, to believe Ethan loved me for me, but the pieces were clicking together too fast. The way he stayed behind at the wedding, his cold texts, his sudden appearance in the study, his desperation. I left the chapel shaking, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. When I reached the hospital room, my mother was awake, her eyes sharp despite her weakness. She whispered one line that sealed everything: "Protect yourself from him, or you'll lose everything." I didn't go home that night. Instead, I booked a small hotel room near the hospital. The papers stayed locked in my suitcase, and I barely slept. Ethan called 3 times, then stopped. His silence was more terrifying than his anger. The following morning, I met with my mother's lawyer. I had called the number written on one of the documents. He was an older man, calm but firm, and when I laid the papers on his desk, he nodded slowly. "Your mother was careful," he said. "Everything here is legal and airtight. The assets are in your name. No one, not even your father, can claim them. Certainly not your husband." My throat tightened. "But he's already trying." The lawyer leaned forward. "Then you need to protect yourself. File for a restraining order if necessary. And don't let him near these." When I returned to the hospital, Ethan was already there, standing at my mother's door. My father blocked him, his voice raised. I stepped between them. "Enough," I said. "You don't come near my mother again." Ethan's eyes flickered, dark and calculating. "You're making a mistake." "No, I'm correcting one." I pulled the papers from my bag. "I know exactly what you've been after. This marriage is over." For the first time, he lost his composure. His face twisted and he reached out as if to grab the documents from my hands. But 2 security guards, called by the nurse, stepped in immediately. Ethan shouted my name, swearing I would regret this, as they escorted him out of the hospital. I stood frozen, my heart pounding, but I didn't back down. My mother's weak smile from the hospital bed was the only reassurance I needed. Weeks later, after filing for annulment and cutting Ethan completely out of my life, I sat in my parents' study again. This time I wasn't afraid. My mother was recovering slowly, my father finally honest about what he had hidden, and the future, my future, was in my hands. I learned the truth about Ethan. He had debts, gambling habits, and a history of short-lived relationships with women who had something to lose. I had been his biggest target yet, but he underestimated me because I still had my mother. I still had the assets she had worked quietly to protect for me. And I still had the strength to walk away from a man who never loved me, only what I owned.